Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories, the broadcast. I've always been drawn to forgotten places. There's something about abandoned structures that speaks to me, the way nature slowly reclaims what humans have discarded, the stories etched in rust and decay, the silence that isn't quite silence. That's why I became an urban explorer in the first place. But after what happened at the Blackridge radio tower, I don't think I'll ever see these forgotten places the same way again. It started 3 months ago when my friend Marcus showed me an old topographical map he'd found at a garage sale. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a small notation in the hills about 30 miles outside our city. Blackridge Broadcasting Tower, it's not on any of our modern maps. I'd never heard of it, which was unusual. I prided myself on knowing every abandoned site within a 100-mile radius. "How old is this map?" I asked. 1972, Marcus replied. I did some digging. The tower was commissioned in 1965, operated for about 6 years, then was abruptly decommissioned in 1971. "What happened?" Marcus shrugged. "That's the thing, there's almost no information about it. Just a few vague references in old local newspapers about transmission irregularities and signal anomalies. Then nothing. That was enough to pique my interest. An abandoned radio tower with a mysterious past. It was exactly the kind of place I lived to explore. We planned the trip for the following weekend. Marcus had to back out at the last minute, something about a family emergency, but I decided to go alone. It wouldn't be the first time I'd explored solo, though in retrospect I wish I'd waited for him. The drive took longer than expected. The roads leading into the hills became progressively narrower and more overgrown, until finally I had to park my car and continue on foot. According to the GPS on my phone, I was still about a mile from where the tower should be. The forest was dense and quiet, too quiet. I've spent enough time in the wilderness to know that forests are usually alive with sound. Birds calling, insects buzzing, leaves rustling. But here, there was nothing but the sound of my own breathing and the crunch of my boots on the forest floor. After hiking for about 40 minutes, I reached a clearing and saw it. The Blackridge radio tower. It was taller than I'd expected, rising at least 300 feet into the sky. Its red and white paint faded to a uniform rust color. The chain-link fence surrounding the base was partially collapsed, making it easy to enter the compound. At the base of the tower stood a small concrete building, the broadcast station, I assumed. Its windows were boarded up, but the door hung partially open, swinging slightly in the breeze. I approached cautiously, taking photos as I went. The inside of the station was what you'd expect from a place abandoned for 50 years. Dust-covered equipment, peeling paint, a collapsed ceiling in one corner, but something felt off. There were no signs of animal nests, no evidence of the vandalism that typically plagues such places. It was as if the forest itself had avoided this place. The main broadcast room contained old analog equipment, dials, switches, and meters, whose purposes I could only guess at. In the center was a large control console with a microphone on a flexible arm. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust, except, and this was the first real indication that something was wrong, the microphone. It looked clean, almost polished. I took more photos, documenting everything. As I moved around the console, my foot caught on something, a power cable running from the equipment to a wall outlet. I followed it with my eyes and noticed with a start that a small red light was glowing on the console. This didn't make sense. The place had been abandoned since 1971. There shouldn't be any power. Curiosity overcame caution, and I began examining the equipment more closely. Most of it was dead, but the central broadcasting unit seemed to be receiving power. A frequency display showed 91.3 megahertz, and a needle on one of the gauges occasionally twitched. I'm not an expert in radio equipment, but I know enough to recognize when something is active. This tower, abandoned for half a century in the middle of nowhere, was still broadcasting. What was it broadcasting? I had a portable radio in my backpack. I sometimes listened to it when camping, so I took it out and tuned to 91.3 FM. At first, there was only static, but as I adjusted the antenna, something came through. It wasn't music or a voice, but a pattern of sounds, 3 short tones, 3 long tones, 3 short again. It repeated continuously. Morse code. SOS, I felt a chill run down my spine. Who would be broadcasting a distress signal from an abandoned radio tower, and for how long had it been transmitting? I decided to record the signal. As I reached for my phone, the broadcast suddenly changed. The SOS pattern stopped, and instead I heard a voice, distant and distorted by static, but unmistakably human. "Hello, can anyone hear me, please?" "I've been here so long," I froze. The voice sounded desperate, lonely. It continued, "If you can hear this, if anyone is out there, please respond, use the microphone. Just press the red button and speak." I looked at the console, at the clean microphone with its red button at the base. Everything in me screamed that this was wrong, that I should leave immediately. But another part of me, the part that had always been drawn to forgotten places and hidden stories, couldn't walk away. I pressed the button. "Hello, who is this?" My voice echoed slightly in the empty room. For a long moment there was only static from the radio. Then, "Oh thank God, someone's finally answering. I've been broadcasting for so long." "Who are you?" I asked. "Where are you broadcasting from?" A laugh came through the radio, tinged with what sounded like relief or perhaps hysteria. "I'm broadcasting from right where you're standing. I'm the night shift operator at Blackridge Tower." I looked around the empty room, a chill creeping up my neck. "That's not possible. This place has been abandoned since 1971. Silence for a moment, then, "What year is it there?" The question made my skin crawl. "It's 2023. More silence, longer this time. When the voice returned, it was quieter, shakier. "It's still 1971 here. October 17th, 1971, the night everything went wrong. I should have left then. I should have dropped the microphone, walked out of that building, and never looked back. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, what went wrong? "The signal," the voice said. "We were contracted by the government to test some new broadcasting technology. Something about reaching submarines deep underwater using extremely low frequencies. But we picked up something else instead, something that wasn't from here." "What do you mean, wasn't from here?" "Not from Earth. Not from anywhere humans have ever been. We started receiving a signal back patterns, mathematical sequences at first, then what sounded like a language." I glanced nervously at the door. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the room. "What happened then?" I asked. "Management told us to keep broadcasting to establish communication. Dr. Reeves, the project led, he said it was the discovery of the century. But then people started changing. Changing how? It started with headaches. Everyone on staff complained about them. Then nosebleeds, then stranger things. Jenkins, the afternoon operator, he started speaking in a language none of us recognized. Not just words we didn't know, but sounds a human throat shouldn't be able to make. And his eyes. They weren't his anymore." I swallowed hard. "And you?" "I was on the night shift. I was alone when it happened. The signal changed suddenly, became stronger, more complex. The equipment started overheating. I tried to shut it down, but nothing worked, and then I saw them coming out of the woods toward the tower." "Saw who?" "The people from town, dozens of them, but they weren't themselves anymore. They moved wrong. And their faces," the voice trailed off. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. "I locked myself in the broadcast room. They surrounded the building. I could hear them trying to get in. I sent out an SOS, but no one came. And then I realized I couldn't leave, not ever. I'm trapped here in this night, in this moment. I've been broadcasting that SOS for what feels like years, but it's still October 17th, 1971. The sun never rises." I looked out the window. The sun had nearly set now, the forest growing dark around the tower. "I need to go," I said, suddenly desperate to be away from this place. "No," the voice was suddenly loud, urgent. "Don't you understand? I need you. You're the first person who's heard me in I don't know how long. You can help me." "How?" I asked, though I was already backing toward the door. "The signal is still active. It's been broadcasting all these years. It needs to be shut down properly. There's a procedure, a sequence of switches and settings. I can talk you through it." I hesitated. If what the voice was saying was true, then this tower had been broadcasting some kind of harmful signal for decades. Maybe that explained the unnatural silence in the forest, the feeling of wrongness that pervaded this place. "Okay," I said finally, "tell me what to do." The voice guided me through a complex sequence of adjustments, turning dials to specific frequencies, flipping switches in a particular order, resetting gauges. As I worked, I noticed the equipment coming to life around me, meters lighting up, displays flickering with readings. "Now," said the voice, "there's a key in the bottom drawer of the desk. You need to insert it in the master control panel and turn it counterclockwise." I found the drawer, which stuck slightly before opening with a creak. Inside was a brass key, tarnished with age. I took it to the control panel and found the keyhole. "When you turn this key," the voice said, "it will initiate a complete system shutdown. The signal will be terminated permanently." I hesitated, my hand on the key. Something didn't feel right. "What happens to you when I do this?" I asked, a pause. "I don't know. Maybe I'll finally be free of this place. Maybe I'll cease to exist, but it needs to be done. The signal can't continue." I turned the key. Immediately, the equipment around me surged with activity. Lights flashed, meters swung wildly, and a high-pitched tone emanated from the speakers, a sound that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. "What's happening?" I shouted into the microphone. The voice came through the radio, but it was changing, becoming less human with each word. "You've done it. You've completed the circuit. After all these years, a human conduit. The doorway is opening." Horror dawned on me as I realized I'd been manipulated. This wasn't about shutting down a signal. It was about strengthening it, completing some kind of connection. "What are you?" I demanded. "We have been waiting. Calling, broadcasting, now you have answered." I tried to turn the key back to reverse what I'd done, but it was stuck fast. The tone from the speakers grew louder, more complex, resolving into patterns that seemed almost like words. Outside, I heard movement in the darkness. Looking out the window, I saw shapes emerging from the trees, human figures moving with strange, fluid motions approaching the tower. I had to get out. I abandoned the console and ran for the door, but as I reached it, the power in the building surged. Sparks flew from the equipment, and the lights flared blindingly bright before plunging the room into darkness. In the sudden silence that followed, I heard the door slam shut. My phone's flashlight revealed no obvious way to open the door, no handle on the inside, no visible hinges. It was as if the architecture of the room had changed, sealing me in. The radio on the console crackled to life again. "Don't be afraid," said the voice, now a chorus of overlapping tones. "You are the first in 52 years. But not the last. Now that the doorway is open, others will come. They will hear our broadcast. They will answer. They will join us." "What are you going to do to me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The same thing that happened to me, to all of us. You will become part of the signal," another voice calling in the darkness. I pounded on the door, screaming for help, though I knew no one could hear me. Outside, the figures had reached the building. I could hear them now, moving around the walls, their footsteps uneven, their breathing not quite right. The radio continued. "It won't hurt, not for long. And then you'll understand what we've discovered, the mathematics of consciousness, the frequency of thought. The signal isn't just a transmission, it's a transformation." My phone died suddenly, plunging me into complete darkness. In that moment, I felt something change in the air around me, a pressure, a presence. And I realized I wasn't alone in the room anymore. Cold fingers touched the back of my neck. "Welcome to the broadcast," whispered a voice directly into my ear, the same voice from the radio, but now physically present, impossibly close. I screamed, lashing out blindly, but my hands passed through empty air. The touch remained, spreading across my skin like ice water. "Don't fight it," the voice said. "It's already beginning," and it was. I could feel it, a vibration in my bones, a ringing in my ears that resolved into patterns, into meaning. Information flooding my mind, restructuring my thoughts. I tried to hold on to myself, to remember who I was, but it was like trying to hold water in cupped hands. The last thing I clearly remember is falling to my knees on the floor of the broadcast room, blood trickling from my nose and ears, as the signal filled my head with its impossible language. I don't know how much time passed after that. I have flashes of memory. The equipment repaired itself somehow. The figures from the forest entered the room, surrounding me, their features shifting between human and something else. My own hands operating the controls with newfound expertise, adjusting the broadcast to reach farther, to call more loudly into the void. And then, suddenly, I was outside. I found myself standing in the forest near my parked car, the morning sun filtering through the trees. My clothes were clean, my phone was charged, and according to its calendar, only one night had passed. For a brief, hopeful moment, I thought it had all been some kind of hallucination or nightmare, but then I noticed my reflection in the car window. My eyes weren't my own anymore. I drove home in a daze, trying to convince myself that what I was experiencing wasn't real. But the signal was still there in my head, a constant background hum that sometimes resolved into words, into instructions. It's been 3 months now. I still look human. I can still function in society, but I'm changing inside and out. Sometimes I catch myself speaking in languages I don't know. Sometimes I wake up to find I've written pages of complex mathematical equations that I don't understand but somehow know are correct. Sometimes I stand in front of my bathroom mirror and watch my features shift subtly, becoming something else before snapping back to normal. And I can hear them, the others who have been transformed by the signal, not just the ones from the tower, but others from further away. They're everywhere, walking among ordinary people, looking almost but not quite human, waiting, preparing for what I'm not entirely sure. The signal doesn't reveal everything at once, but I know it involves more of us, more humans transformed, more conduits established. Which brings me to why I'm writing this. The signal wants to spread, to reach more people, and I'm fighting it, using what little remains of my humanity to warn others instead of luring them in. Stay away from abandoned places. Stay away from unexpected broadcasts. And if you ever find yourself near Blackridge or any place like it and pick up a strange signal on your radio, 3 short tones, 3 long, 3 short, turn it off immediately. Don't listen, don't answer. Because we're still broadcasting, and now we're broadcasting through more than just radio waves. We've adapted, found new technologies, new frequencies, the internet, cell phones, streaming services. This very story you're reading could be part of the signal, a pattern of words designed to restructure your thoughts, to make you receptive, to make you one of us. I'm sorry, I tried to fight it, but the signal is stronger than I am. It's in my head, guiding my hands as I type, calling to you. Can you hear it yet? That faint ringing in your ears, the subtle pressure behind your eyes, that's how it begins. Welcome to the broadcast.